Quartal harmony and quartal arpeggios are a great sound to have in your vocabulary, besides the usual triads and arpeggios that you're probably already using. It also fits extremely well with the sound that you get if you're superimposing pentatonic scales onto the jazz chords. In this video I'm going to go over some different examples of how you can use quartal arpeggios in your solos. I'm going to do that on an A minor 7 chord, and some of the examples are going to be using the pentatonic scales, some odd note groupings, and also some ideas that I got from Kurt Rosenwinkel, Allan Holdsworth and Bernstein. My name is Jens Larsen. If you want to learn more about jazz guitar and use that to make music, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to make sure not to miss anything, then click the little bell notification icon next to the subscribe button. This example really illustrates the link between pentatonic scales and quartal harmony, because the entire line is in fact just A minor pentatonic on top of an A minor 7 chord, even if it doesn't really sound like a blues lick or something that we normally associate with a pentatonic sound. So the first part of the line is the quartal arpeggio from D, then we get the quartal arpeggio from A, then from D one more time, but then an octave higher, and then down to the high A and then a scale run, and it ends on the third of the A minor chord. So what I'm using here is really just that if you start constructing, you can think of this as an exercise. You can also think about it as constructing diatonic triads within the pentatonic scale. Then you get 3 quartal arpeggios. So if we take this scale, so the pentatonic box here from A, then constructing a diatonic triad would really just be to play this from A. So we have a quartal arpeggio from A. Here we get a first inversion A minor triad, quartal arpeggio from D, quartal arpeggio from E, second inversion C major, and then we are back on A, and that of course just repeats up there. So we get 3 quartal arpeggios just within the pentatonic scale. But you can of course also connect quartal arpeggios to a major scale, which is what I'm doing in this example. So here I'm using a G major scale because the sound that I'm using is pretty much like A Dorian throughout. I'm using some passing notes as well, but really the basic idea is sort of A Dorian like this. I'm starting with just a melody to target the 7th of the chords of the G, and that's really just coming out of the triad, so the A and the E, and then chromatic approach down to the G. Once I'm on the G, I start playing quartal arpeggios, and I'm actually just playing descending quartal arpeggios and then moving that up through the scale, so, and then ending on the 11th up here. Moving quartal arpeggios in steps like I'm doing here works really well. And in fact, it creates both sort of a group of 3/8 notes, so it kind of shifts in a nice way on top of the meter, and it's a little bit less predictable sounding than if I was to do the same with triads. So it makes sense to actually check that out, and it's easier to work on this if you just stick with one string set. So an exercise could be something like this. This example is a variation on how you can use the quartal arpeggios in a major scale as a diatonic movement. But here I'm using it to really emphasize that you can also use it to create some polyrhythms. And what I'm doing here is first just a bebop enclosure, so, and then a C major triad. Then I start playing the quartal arpeggios, so that's this one first, but I'm playing it in a pattern that's 3 quarter notes long. So I have, and this pattern is just moving on top of the beat, so it's gonna start in a new place every time, and in that way work as an odd note grouping. The reason that I can keep on publishing videos every week is that there is a community of people over on Patreon that are supporting the channel. I'm very grateful for their support, and it's because of them that I can keep on making all these music theory and jazz guitar videos. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. And if you join us over on Patreon, then I can also give you something in return for your support. This way of playing Quintal Arpeggios is something that I got from Allan Holdsworth. It's also one of the examples in one of the videos that I did on him. I'll link to that in a card here in the video and also in the description of this video. I'm using string skipping to play the Quintal Arpeggios in this case. And the idea is that I'm playing 1/4 interval on the A string from E to A here. And then I'm skipping one string and going up to the G string and playing from D to G. So in that way I'm playing a 4-part Quintal arpeggio. From here it just moves on to a pretty straightforward A minor line, so with a leading note. And with also this sort of repeated, that's actually a little bit also similar to Holdsworth, but it's not so relevant to the lesson. But I'm using the idea of hammering onto this G, but pulling off to the same pitch, or the same G on the next string, and then ending on the high E. This way of playing Quintal Arpeggios in several octaves is an idea that I got from Kurt Rosenwinkel. It's in fact one of the examples in the video where I'm analyzing his solo on I Remember April. The way that I'm using it here is that I'm first playing a C major 7 arpeggio, so the arpeggio from the 3rd of A minor. Then I go into the Quintal Arpeggios in 2 octaves, so that's first from E here, and then the same arpeggio an octave higher. And then I move down just 2 chord tones, so the 3rd and the root. And here I move into a Quintal arpeggio, so I'm playing first a high B, and then going down and playing the Quintal arpeggio from A, so A, E and B. Now Quintal arpeggios are of course closely related to quartal harmony and sound, mostly because the 5th is the inverse interval of a 4th. And you can also kind of see that because if I have, the notes that I have here are A, E and B, and of course if I move them around a bit then I have B, E and A, and that's a Quintal arpeggio. So in that way those two are pretty much the same sound. And then I finally end the line on the 13 of A minor, F sharp. If you want to check out some more choices for different arpeggios that you can start using in your solos, then check out this video where I'm going over 6 different types of arpeggios, all with 3 notes that are pretty easy to incorporate into your solo playing. If this is the first time you see one of my videos and you want to learn more about jazz guitar, then subscribe to my channel. If you want to help me keep making videos, then check out my Patreon page. That's about it for this time. Thank you for watching, and until next time.